You're listening to the Wanderlusting Wives podcast, your podcast for escaping life's monotony, indulging in your wildest travel fantasies, and discovering the constant beauty of this ever-changing world. On this week's episode, Allie and Regan reflect on the last 3 seasons of the Wanderlusting Wives podcast. Welcome to the Wanderlusting Wives podcast. We are your navigators, Allison
and Regan. Welcome to the last episode of season 3, which is really, really hard to believe. And we have some announcements about our podcast and some just wrap up from the year. But before we get started, Allie, let everybody know how they can keep in touch with us.
Okay, so before the big announcement, I'm just going to leave you with our email, we'll say. So you can find our other social media in previous episodes if you're really looking for that, or just a quick search on social media. It'll be easy to find us. But I would want us to leave our email here for you in case you want to get in touch with us, leave us feedback. We would love to hear from all of you. Our email is wanderlustingwives@gmail.com. And then you can also let us know you're here by giving us a 5-star review or commenting, leaving a review, whatever you'd like. We'd love to hear from all of you.
Yeah, this has been, we have the best listeners, and we have just loved getting to know our guests and hearing from our listeners and everything. We have just had such a great time as two friends having this podcast for the past 3 years. And as this is the end of season 3, it's also the time when Allie and I are going to take a step back from the Wanderlusting Wives podcast. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a forever thing. We might come back to it, but we started this podcast a few years ago in the middle of the pandemic, and it was really seeming like nothing was ever going to open up again. And we were like, is travel ever going to come back? And as we wanted to stay connected too. Allie was in Pittsburgh and I was in New York at the time. And with all the restrictions, it just didn't seem possible that we were going to really be able to connect so much. So we started this podcast, and somehow you guys wanted to listen, and it was really, really, really awesome for these few years. And now that we're getting back to it and things have opened up, and we're just busy in our lives, and it was so fun for these 3 years, but I think it's time to wrap it up, at least for the time being. So Allie, what say you in all of this?
Yes, it's a very bittersweet decision, and like Regan said, maybe it's not a forever thing. We just made this decision like a week and a half ago, and we're just kind of sitting with it in the moment. The holidays are coming up, and it's a busy time, right? So maybe this is just how we're feeling in the moment. Maybe come June, we'll be like, hey, guess what? We really missed the podcast. Let's get back into it. No promises. I'm just saying we'll see what life has in store for us, but maybe this is not goodbye forever, but we shall see. But yeah, it's been amazing to see how our podcast is just transformed from me being in my closet in the first season because I didn't have a space to record, and that was the best place for sound. And we were just kind of joking like, oh yeah, haha, let's make a podcast. And it was just us for a while. And then we had our first guest, Ted Craig. So shout out to Ted for giving us that boost of confidence that we needed to say, hey, maybe there's more than just us out there that's willing to talk about travel. And that brought on season 2, where we made an insane amount of episodes because we were doing like 2 different series in one. We had Travel Tuesdays and then Wildcard Wednesdays. So you got a chance to get to know more about us personally. And we started to bring on more guests. And then season 3, and if you've been listening, this was mostly guests. I think maybe a handful of episodes were actually just the 2 of us. So we've come a long way, like I said, from me being in my closet, Regan living in New York, just us chatting about our own travels, to now connecting with people throughout the whole world. It's been an amazing 3 years. And like I said, it is bittersweet. We'll see what's in store for the future, but we couldn't have asked for a better 3 years and 3 seasons. And your support has been amazing, and the guests that we've connected with, holy cow, so many amazing people that we never would have even known existed probably, or connected with for that matter, if it wasn't for this podcast. And I let Regan speak, but I know I have found so much inspiration and sense of adventure, and then the tons and tons of places that are now on my already really long list of travel.
Yeah.
To just grow every episode and every season. So hopefully, this podcast has been just as inspiring for you as it has been for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Bittersweet is definitely a good way to put it. Yeah, we've had a great time and also things change and that's okay. And it's that's one of the great things about podcasting is that like you can kind of pick it up, you can set it down for a second, but also it's kind of just a time capsule of where we were at for these past 3 years. It's just been like when we're old and in nursing homes together and dreaming about travel still. It's going to be amazing to go back and listen to all of this, the memories that we made through this podcast, the people that we heard from. And yeah, that bucket list is really long. So hopefully when we're in nursing homes, we'll be able to say that as a result of this podcast and being inspired to travel to some new destinations that we hadn't otherwise thought of, hopefully we'll be able to say, yeah, we did that. We checked that off our bucket list. So, yeah, just thank you. We've had a great time. But before we sign off for the last time for now, we have a couple of just little things, some reflections, and we're gonna just start with some statistics about where our podcast was, how far it's come, and Allie, take it away.
Yeah, so like I was saying a few minutes ago, it was kind of just like a, hey, haha, let's start a podcast. And then it got a little bit more serious and has evolved to something amazing. So just a few quick little stats here for you over the last 3 years. So not just this season specific, but the last 3 years. We have episodes that cover all 7 continents. So if there's a continent you want to visit, we have it covered. Maybe not that specific destination, but we have a ton of destinations covered. In fact, this is our 96th episode, so close to 100, but 96 is a nice even number anyways, so we'll take
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a really great episode too that is like our index of like all of our episodes. So if you don't want to have to like scroll through the whole Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen to your podcast, have to say that one more time. um, that's a really great place to start as well, because you can see like our whole index, or I guess listen to a whole index of all of our episodes. If you're looking for a specific country, we have it broken down by continent. And then in the last 3 years, we've covered topics like couples travel, cruising, family vacations, digital nomads, RV life, the Mongol Rally, and the Camino de Santiago, just to name a few. There's tons of other things we've covered, but those are kind of the standout ones. And then this is a fun little statistic here is we have listeners from 41 countries, 42 states, and 6 out of the 7 continents. So if any of those polar bears are listening to the podcast, now's the time to show your face. We would love to get all 7 continents.
Yeah. Oh my god. That's too funny.
I don't even know if there's polar bears in Antarctica. Probably not. So maybe if there's any whales or something, that would be
Yeah.
nice.
Or Santa. Isn't Santa technically North Pole, but like maybe could be South Pole? There was something that we learned at one point in school about like, wait a minute, Santa being at the North Pole with pictures of penguins. Wait, that doesn't make sense. So like I don't know, maybe Santa
Yeah,
somehow is affiliated with Antarctica and the South Pole. Who
he
knows?
could be.
So
You never know. He's always watching, so you better be on
yeah.
your best behavior wherever he may be.
Which is such a freaky concept, but I digress. So yeah, that's a little bit about our podcast, but now the more emotive part of it, and this has been a tough question for us, but Allie and I were talking about our favorite episodes that we recorded, and there are 96 of them. This is 96, so I guess 95 to choose from. But wow, we were tasked with picking our 5 favorite episodes, not in any specific order, and we also have not told each other what these are. So we're really excited. You're getting this live reaction from us of like how our thoughts align or how we found differences, but like so I'm excited to hear this. So in no specific order, let's just start one at a time.
Sounds easy enough. We'll see what happens.
All right, let's do it. All right, so one of my top 5 was actually the episode in season 2 with Leanne and Lyle from Beach Travel Wine podcast.
Yep. I
Oh
have
my
that
god.
one too. From the moment we logged on with them and they're like, "Oh, hang on, there's some whales breaching outside of our balcony." It was like, "Oh, this is going to be amazing."
It was so good, right? And, like, okay, so just so you know, this episode is season 2, episode 35. So that's where you go to get this. I That is probably one of the stories I tell the most from our podcast. They tell an incredible story about they went on a jumping crocodile tour in the north of Australia. I should also mention that that episode was about Australia and New Zealand. So just putting that out there. But they tell this incredible story about the jumping crocodile tour and how this shark came along, and it was literally something that was like Godzilla versus Kong, like that, some incredible stories. So that was definitely a top 5 for me.
Yeah, they have really, really good story telling abilities. Like it made you feel like you were there on the trip, and like the banter they have with each other is so funny and so engaging. So yeah,
Mhm.
that was on my list as well.
Okay,
It's
we are
such a
1
great
for 1.
episode. Yep.
All right, Allie, what is number 2 for you?
The next one I have is pretty early on. So it's season 1, episode 25. And this was one of our maybe second guests, I think. So the most powerful travel stories with Steve Silverman.
Ooh,
Wow.
that was a great
That
one.
was a really, really great episode. And I kind of felt like that was the beginning of the snowball effect of like, okay, we can have guests on. I know we had Ted, but that was like I think the second guest. We're like, okay, we can have guests on that's more than just like our parents. And then his story, I cannot remember where they were, but they were like with some kind of couple that was on their honeymoon, and there was like a really great story with that. Again, this was season 1, so I have to go back and jog my memory, or you can just listen to the episode for yourself. But he just had such really cool and inspiring stories, and hence why the title's called "The Most Powerful Travel Stories," because it was a very inspiring episode, and I felt like, okay, this is kind of getting serious with our podcast. We've had 2 guests now, and both times they had really great things to say. And that was kind of, what led to more and more guests being on our podcast.
Yeah. Oh, and he was such a good storyteller too. So if you want
Hmm.
some good stories, not just about travel, but just about the goodness in the world, World Gone Good podcast, that was just, yes. Head on
Yeah.
over there. We want to plug away at our peer podcasters. Awesome. Okay, so we are 1 for 2,
Uh
even though
oh.
that I don't disagree with you. Okay. My next one was Antarctica with Jamie Edwards, which was season 2, episode 41. And I think this was one of my favorites because Jamie is a world traveler. She's been on I think we have 3 episodes with Jamie, and she's a great storyteller. She is just knows travel. And so that kind of, it was fun to talk to somebody who knows travel, in-depth photography, like tips, all of these different things, and also to hear about a destination that, wow, like nobody goes to. It was incredible, and just hearing about the nature and how raw Antarctica is and all of this, I was just on the edge of my seat for the entire episode.
Yeah, I did not have that one, surprisingly. And I will say I don't even have any Jamie Edwards episodes on here. How dare I? She is amazing, and I do love all of her episodes. So don't
We
let that
loved all
sway
our
you.
episodes.
Yeah, we did. That one was amazing. I forgot about that one. How could I forget? Oh my gosh. We were just
Right?
talking about the polar bears who may not even be there. So I should have had that one in mind. But yeah, that was an incredible episode, and I didn't really have any interest in visiting Antarctica. And then she came on, and I was like, oh, shoot. Now I gotta add that one to the list because
Right?
that sounds so interesting. And then just to go to a place that, well, I guess now a lot more people are going to, but so few people have gone to compared to other places. It was like, wow, that must be really
Yeah.
special to get to experience wildlife who have barely seen humans or even boats, probably. So, how cool is that to be there so early on? And I guess the tourism that's starting to happen in Antarctica.
Yeah. Oh, totally. So, see, this is one of the things that, like, we didn't know, but now it's on our bucket list. So, Thanks, Jamie.
Yep. All right,
Awesome.
let's see what I've got next here. So, actually, kind of going along with that, places that I were also really not on my radar, I'd heard of before, but season 3, episode 4, the Galapagos Islands with Fernando Diaz, I was like, wait a minute, how do I get on the next available boat? Because I got to get there right this second. I'm not really into like snorkeling or swimming with wildlife. That freaks me out. Um, but the Galapagos is more than just that. That is just part of the experience. But the thought of being on like your own boat with a small group, or maybe just even your family, depending on how many people are going, the fact that you're going to places that are off the beaten path, and it's not as remote as Antarctica, but not as many people go to the Galapagos Islands. And then for him to just kind of speak about his parents and how they started the business, Quasar Expeditions, was just so cool to hear that perspective on the Galapagos Islands. And he wasn't at all trying to sell us on his family's business or their particular excursion. He's like, I know there's companies that are cheaper, and that's okay if you go with them. It's kind of like a get what you pay for thing. And he was so respectful of not pushing his business on us or our listeners, and just giving us the knowledge about the Galapagos. So I really, really appreciated that episode and the insight that he brought to our listeners.
Yeah, totally. I had that one on my top 5 too. It was just, yeah, again, on the edge of your seat. We got done
Mm-hmm.
with the episode and Fernando signed off and Allie and I were like, okay, we're immediately looking up the company. We're immediately looking at flights. Like we were just all in.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds amazing. It's somewhere that actually as a result I've recommended to my family of like, we could do this as a family because it really is. I didn't know it was, but it can be a family friendly destination, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally agree.
I need to go back and
100%.
listen to that one.
I
Oh,
know.
so good.
Such good memories. Okay. So my next one was actually more of a personal choice. So episode or season 1, episode 10. So in season 1, we have several Disney World episodes, and of course, I love talking Disney at any time. We had Rachel Ingersoll, who is quite the Disney fanatic, and it was awesome talking to her in season 3. There's 2 parts there. But I think my favorite Disney World episode was in season 1, episode 10, when my siblings came on and we just geeked out about Disney World the whole time. And it was less so about like tips and tricks for traveling, but more so just kind of creative questions about like, okay, what are your favorite snacks in Disney World? And if you could change a ride, what would you change it to? What would the overlay be? Like it was just fun to geek out and nerd out for 45 minutes or half an hour, whatever it was. And it was just a really, really special time. I don't always get that time with my siblings to just like talk without interruption about Disney World, which is one of my favorite things to do anyways. So that was really, really special for me.
That was not on my list. That was the most stressful episode I've ever had to record. I've been to Disney like 3 times. I don't know anything new that's happening there. So I was just kind of winging it, and I was
Ellie
like,
was a great moderator.
yeah, I didn't really have a ton
Great
to say.
moderator. Hey, you chimed in there with a couple of things,
Yep, like
you do
2
what you
things.
can.
It was a really great episode. So not trying to like knock it down, but I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything, and they're just like naming all this stuff, and I'm just like,
We are nerds. It's
what?
true. I'd
Could
be
I
interested
name
to
the
do that
Disney
episode
parks?
today.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
I don't know. Let's not go there.
Yeah, that was a
Um,
lot. That was very special personally for me.
yeah, it was still a really great episode.
Yeah.
But I think it's over to me.
Yeah.
So with that one, this is season 2, episode 2. So this is from the Wildcard Wednesday segments, which we got to have more personal stories on. We spun a wheel and just got to have fun with that. And this is our worst date stories. I feel like it's just
Ooh.
a fun, really somewhat personal, I guess, episode. And I don't know, I think people enjoy like the vulnerability of the Wild Card Wednesday episodes, because we just We would share some of our highs and lows. We would share our worst date stories. We would share our engagements, who happen to not be with the people in our worst date stories. Thank goodness. Um, so yeah, I just really liked the Wild Card Wednesday episodes, and that one in particular was just kind of funny to think back on our worst date stories.
Oh my god, it's so true. And, like, I don't think I even knew your worst date story.
Yeah, I didn't know
So,
yours
like,
either.
yeah, we learned about each other, and the Wildcard Wednesdays were a great opportunity to do that, like, all year long. We were just talking about random things or, like, learning about each other, and, like, we talk all the time, and, like, the podcast has really helped us to stay connected, but to, like, get those very specific random topics every week. It was just so fun. Ah, yeah,
Yeah,
and
and
that
we
one was
spun the
really
wheel
great.
like live too. We didn't plan ahead and like spin the wheel before we jumped on. It was like, okay, here are, I don't know, say 25 topics that we planned at the beginning of that season. And then we said, okay, we're just going to spin it live and whatever happens, happens. So I think that made
Yep.
it more fun and a bit
Yeah.
more nerve wracking, but a lot more exciting as well.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Oh my gosh. Ah, good stuff. Okay, let's see. I have 1, I have 2, I have 3, I have 4.
All right,
Okay,
this is
well,
your
then I
last
guess I'm on my
one.
last one. Yeah. Do
Okay,
you only have 1 left
I
also?
do.
Okay. My number 5, and this is not ranked, it would probably rank number 1, was anytime we talked about Iceland. So this was harkening all the way back when it was one of the only destinations that the 2 of us could really talk about together.
Mhm.
So that was season 1. It's 2 parts, episodes 4 and 5, and then we did tell some more stories in season 2, episode 11. But it was just anytime talking about that trip because we love Iceland so much, and it was just such a great trip. We get into it in, I think, the season 2, episode 11 too, about like why that trip was so important. And it was just,
Mhm.
so anytime we were talking about Iceland, but specifically those times, that it's got to be in the top 5.
Yeah, that was not on my list, but it's an honorable mention. And
Yeah,
I
it's kind of the one we assume, right? Did we really
yeah.
need to put it in the top 5? Yeah, you're right.
But I think you'll understand why I picked the other one instead of Iceland, because this is a
Okay.
unique destination. So this
Mhm.
was season 3, episode 17, Traveling to Cuba as an American with Kat
Oh,
Medina.
yes.
That I know I've probably said this like 15 times now. That was amazing and very inspiring. Okay, we know this podcast is amazing and inspiring. But that episode, to hear about not only an American going to Cuba, a female going to Cuba, and then going, and during the time that Fidel Castro had died, was like the craziest stories that Kat had from that. Was so so cool. And
Yeah.
also, if you have the chance, read her book The Joys of Jet Lag. That's a great book
Mm.
as well,
Mhm.
and she shared a copy with us. And yeah, that is inspiring if you're looking for a good book to start off 2025. That's a great place to start. But yeah, I really love that episode. Like I said, just kind of um, the different take on Cuba, especially like from an American perspective. And I don't want to give away too much of the episode, but she does share about when she came back to the U.S. and the media was already there, right in her face, saying like, "Hey, what was it like being there when Fidel Castro died?" And just kind of forcing their narrative already. And she's like, whoa, 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 wait a minute. Like, this is the
Yeah.
Cuba that America sees, but this is not the Cuba that I got to see. So that was really cool to get that perspective, because I think we don't get to have that enough, whether it be from Cuba or other countries, but in this case, Cuba. So I liked that perspective on travel that we don't always get to see or hear from other people.
Yeah, totally. Oh, that was an awesome episode. And Kat was just such a great guest too. Yeah, definitely read her book. Very inspirational. Um, yeah, and also that's another destination that it's like if the time was right, like there were so many destinations. Cuba is one of
Mm-hmm.
them. We didn't even mention the like safaris in Tanzania with James. Like there are so
Yep.
many destinations that as a result of this podcast, they've just been amazing. And I think our top fives have kind of proven that like there was so much good content and we each got something different out of it. And what we set out to do with the podcast was to have fun and talk about travel rather, and talk to like-minded travelers and learn. And we each got something different and we each got something the same, but overall this has just been such an awesome experience. I'm so glad that we did this together.
Yeah, I'm so glad we did too. And I think it also kind of gave me a new perspective on travel. Like, there's so much of the world that I think I've seen. And then I hear all these different stories, and I'm like, wow,
Mm,
I have barely scratched the surface. And I think that's what's so great about this is that we all have our own different travel stories and experiences and adventures. And you and I, we could both go to say, well, I'll just say some random place, Tanzania, because you just said that. We could both go to Tanzania separately and have a completely different experience.
mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
think that it's very unique that we get to hear different perspectives. Like maybe another American has gone to Cuba and they thought completely differently than Kat, and that's okay. That's what's so amazing about having a variety of guests from different places and different backgrounds and experiences and travel experiences for that matter too.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I felt underqualified to be here. I'm like, what did I do to deserve these awesome guests? I don't know, but we are so glad you are here.
So well said. Yeah, 100%. And you know what? It doesn't have to stop with the Wanderlusting Wives podcast. We're honored if we were your travel podcast of choice, but there are so many other amazing travel podcasts out there, or like quasi travel podcasts that might talk about adventures. And that's like kind of synonymous with travel sometimes. All right. Well, with all of that being said, I think the only thing left is to say goodbye, or rather see you later. And we'll see what that ends up looking like, but we will absolutely let you know if anything comes out in the future. But thank you for being such an amazing listener base. Thank you for your reviews that you've given us. Thank you for your patience with us. Thank you for laughing along with us, crying along with us. Just thank you for supporting our podcast and our passion for travel. It's been really great. So thank you to our guests. Thank you to our listeners. Thank you, Allie, for like being on this journey with me. It's been so much fun and such a unique opportunity to be able to do something like this with your best friend. So yeah.
Yeah, this has been amazing recording with you, Regan. So thank you so much, everyone, and especially Regan. We hope you will continue to connect with us, even if we're not on social media or the Wanderlusting Wives podcast. Think that's all to say, but thank you so much, and we hope you have a great 2025.
And for the last time, wander on.
Thanks for tuning in to the Wanderlusting Wives podcast. Come escape with us again every other Tuesday for Travel Tuesdays.
Don't forget to give us a subscribe and a follow on all of our social media and wherever you listen to your podcasts. And until next time, wander on.